Hi there, and welcome to the Fantasy Fire and Ice podcast. My name is Chris Crawford. Today is Friday, October 13th. Yep, it's Friday the 13th, and we're going to be talking about some baseball today. I'm going to be doing it with my buddy Drew Silva. Drew, how are you doing this Friday morning?
Doing all right, man. The lower seeds are getting it done. It's March Madness in October. Like of the top four overall seeds, yeah, the teams to earn a first round bye, only the Astros managed to get through.
Yep.
I saw this stat. Teams with 92 plus regular season wins have gone 1-13 this October. Teams with fewer than 92 regular season wins are 13-1. I don't know that this format is ideal for determining who has the best baseball team, but it's been a lot of fun to watch. It's good television, and it's what we have.
Has it been, though? Like,
Sure, I don't know.
so many of these games just haven't had that drama to me, Drew. Like, it's been kind of a weird postseason, and maybe I'm like biased as a Mariner fan who desperately wanted to make the postseason in back-to-back years for the first time in seems like 140 years, but actually only 22 years. But like, I don't know. I just haven't really gotten. I've loved it because it's baseball, and I had a really good time watching last night's game. That was a pretty darn good one, and we might as well jump into it. So Atlanta is eliminated from the postseason. Philadelphia moves on to the NLCS. They will be the host, even as the 4 seed, taking on the Diamondbacks. Drew, did Philadelphia win this series or did Atlanta lose it? And before you jump in and answer, I'll give my answer real quick. I think Philadelphia won it, but Atlanta did not look great down the stretch. And some of that I think has to do with their pitching. You know, the starting pitching did have a bunch of injuries, having to rely on rookies and then guys who just, aren't really postseason type performer type guys, the guys who can miss a ton of bats. But I'll ask you, Drew, do you think Philadelphia won this series or did Atlanta lose it?
Reject the premise of the question. But yeah, I mean, similar to the Dodgers, who we can talk about too, that the Atlanta just had too many too many holes on their pitching staff by the end of the year, and ran into a hot team that had swept its wild card series while the Braves were having to sit on their hands or play intra squad games or try to stay fresh somehow. Just looking ahead for the Braves, I think they're going to go after a free agent pitcher this winter. Not that they don't have like great organizational depth in that regard, but someone like Sonny Gray makes a lot of sense. Maybe even they pay up for Blake Snell. Getting Snell and that swing and miss into that Atlanta pitching system would be interesting. Aaron Nola would be really funny if Atlanta made a play for him. They're stacked on position player talent for the next decade almost. So many of those young and productive hitters are locked up to long-term deals. I think a maybe uncomfortable spend on a starting pitcher could be on the horizon. Like they're going to be the NL East favorite, I bet, heading into 2024. But don't you kind of get the vibe that the Phillies don't mind going through the wild card round? It seems to like fit that team's personality. It probably fits Philadelphia's personality as a city. They don't want a week of rest.
No, I mean, this is back-to-back years where they've at least advanced to the LCS through that wild card round. By the way, this is also one of my biggest issues is we see both 6 seeds advance to the LCS here. And it's one of those things where the 6 seed has a massive advantage over the 5 seed, I think, because the 5 seed is always going to have to play the 4 seed, and the 4 seed is always going to be the top wild card. And almost always the top wild card is going to be a better baseball team than the 3rd division winner. Now, if you look at this year, it was certainly true in the American League, but even if you take a look in the National League, the Brewers were, better by record. If you asked anybody, and this is not just hindsight, who would you rather play, the Philadelphia Phillies or the Milwaukee Brewers? I think they would pick the Brewers pretty quickly. Like, there was a lot of talk about having teams pick their postseason opponent, if you remember, Drew, when that CBA was going on, like because of how the seeding and stuff was going to go on. But yeah, I mean, look, Atlanta's got a great core. They're going to be very good for a long time. And their starting pitching isn't like a huge weakness, like compared to other teams. But I do think they need, like Spencer Strider, I think is a strong number 2. I do think they could use that ace type guy and a little bit more depth as well. Of course, Atlanta is so good at developing pitching. It wouldn't shock me if AJ Smith-Shawver takes a step forward, and they do have some.
Dylan Dodd, Jared Schuster, like some of these
Yeah,
guys, one of them could pop, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of pop, the Los Angeles Dodgers saw their bubble pop. They were swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks, the red hot Arizona Diamondbacks, who I just keep peeking against, and they keep saying, haha, shut up, Chris Crawford. The Dodgers have now been eliminated much earlier than they would have liked, despite having a quality regular season. They weren't the best team in the National League, but they were certainly one of them, and a lot of people's pick to go to the World Series. Do you think they got to make some changes?
You kind of get tired, or I do at least, of seeing all like the sky is falling reactions from and about teams that get eliminated. Like only one team is going to win every year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this certainly wasn't a quick ouster for a Dodgers club that won the National League West by 16 games. I think that was the biggest edge of any division winner. They had 100 regular season wins, just couldn't get anything going offensively or with the pitching in a quick 3-game sweep at the hands of the Diamondbacks, who we can discuss later in previewing the NLCS. Like Magic Johnson put it well on Twitter, as he tends to do. I'm going to just paraphrase him, but it was like, we're all disappointed that our Dodgers didn't hit or pitch well. That's why they lost to the Diamondbacks, exclamation point. Like, well said, Magic. They just didn't hit or pitch well for 3 games, and they're gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Clayton Kershaw, Bobby Miller, and Lance Lynn, the games 1 and 2 and 3 starters for the Dodgers, combined to allow 13 earned runs in like 4 2/3 innings. Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, who could both be top 3 finishers in the NL MVP vote, when it combined 1 for 21. Freeman had a single, no hits for Betts. It's just not a successful recipe in a best of 5 series. They're fine. I mean, they're gonna have. It's almost dangerous that they. I mean, I guess we have to say it. They haven't won a World Series in a non-COVID affected year since the 80s, right? Like
Yeah.
they could kind of be in panic mode this offseason. Shohei Ohtani's out there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of big-time free agent pitchers out there. They're so stacked and run so well as an organization, and they have the funds to back up what they want to do, that I think they're going to be very dangerous next year, and there's no reason to freak out. I mean, hats off to the Diamondbacks, and again, we'll talk about them a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about Ohtani a little bit at the end of this show as well. By the way, this is our final regular season show of the year. We really appreciate everybody who's been tuning in, and I'll say all of that again. And I will also mention to make sure you're checking out the Contrarian Edge Optimizer. It is an awesome tool. If you're watching us on YouTube, and we appreciate that, right below Drew's beautiful smiling face, you will see a little code that you can scan with your phone, or you can go to fantasysportslogic.com, or you can go to sportstopia.io, and I can't recommend doing that enough either. You can find a bunch of great articles. You can find prize picks. You can find rankings for your fantasy football. You can find a bunch of NBA stuff. I imagine those of you who are having NBA drafts got to look up these rankings. You forget about who plays for who. I know I do. You got to go look all of that great stuff up. We wholeheartedly recommend it. American League, the ALCS wasn't much better than the NLCS in terms of competition, but I think the Twins, you're going to look at Twins losing 4 and think that maybe Houston, maybe not dominated, but was overwhelming better. I don't think that was the case, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, they were just a little bit too much in the end. The Twins made it a series by winning Game 2 at Houston, but got routed in Game 3 at Target Field, and then lost a close one in Game 4. Byron Buxton making a triumphant return from his knee injury could have been a fun storyline. He was activated ahead of Game 4 on Wednesday, but he had one pinch hitting appearance and popped out to the first baseman, if I remember correctly. 3 straight Ryan Presley strikeouts in the bottom of the 9th inning against Jorge Polanco, Royce Lewis, and Max Kepler to end things. You could maybe argue that called third strike on Kepler, but it was close enough that he probably shouldn't have taken it. Yeah. Whatever the case, they couldn't get the lineup to Carlos Correa, who had been their one of their hottest hitters, lost 3-2 in the deciding game, and that'll wrap it up. Yeah, I mean, the Astros are yet again looking dangerous. We'll get into them in this all Texas matchup for the American League Championship Series. I think an encouraging season all around, though, for the Twins. They won the AL Central, maybe by default, but they really ran away with it toward the end of the year. Picked up their first postseason win, their first postseason series win for the first time in a long while. And there's a lot of like cost controlled players. I think their pitching staff is really strong,
Mhm.
and like can be very consistent going into 2024, even probably losing Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray said after the game that he wants to remain in Minnesota, and money isn't a factor, but that's the kind of thing you hear from most impending free agents, and
Sure.
he's going to take the richest contract he gets. And I don't see the Twins spending money in that way. Um, I mean, Royce Lewis taking another step forward, Jorge Polanco, healthier and taking another step forward. Well, I hope Byron Buxton can get over the hump with his knee and various injuries. That would be huge for them, even as just in a DH role. I mean, they tried that this year, but there's a lot to look forward to. The Twins, especially just being in that division, they can kind
Yeah,
of
I was gonna
take
say.
command of it with maybe just spending a bit more money and getting a little bit more development for some of their young starters.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to bring up as well, is just the fact that I wonder how motivated they'll be in the offseason to spend too much cash to know that at least on paper, and things can change, who the heck is competing with them in the AL Central? Because I guess Cleveland, you still have to put in that 2 spot, even though Detroit actually was probably the better of the 4 bottom teams, and I guess Detroit could be like a breakout candidate type of team. We thought maybe that was the case in 2022, and of course it didn't work out. Nobody had a whole lot of expectations for them. But look, them winning 87 games and relying so much on rookies, like the seasons that Royce Lewis put
Yeah.
together and Matt Wallner, who looked like a real thing for a lot of this season, and one of the more underrated rookie seasons from Edouard Julien. They can hit, man. They're a good lineup. They've got to get Byron Buxton has to stay healthy, and that's a tough thing to require. I mean, there is a long history here now, but I do think Minnesota is well set up, and I think they'll probably be, when like the betting odds come out for next year, the most overwhelming favorite to win their division next year, just because. And I think that has more to do with insult to the other 4 teams in the division, to be honest with you, than compliment to Minnesota. But I do think that if you had to like bet that one team was going to the postseason next year, it's got to be Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I could see the White Sox doing something stupid. Like, they've already been connected to, like, trade rumors for Salvador Perez, and I love Salvador Perez, but he's, what, a 34-year-old catcher, mostly DH,
Yeah.
whose ratios, like, rate stats are certainly declining. They've been connected to Whit Merrifield already in free agency. Like, I don't he kind of had a renaissance this year in Toronto with the speed a bit. What do you have, like, 26 stolen bases, but like the on base percentage has plummeted. The batting average has plummeted. He's not the player that he once was. The White Sox could make some really dumb moves and maybe have a better looking roster, but I think the Twins are they have the best foundation of any of those teams by a long shot. The Tigers could be interesting depending on what they do in the offseason, but I feel
Mhm.
like we've been saying that for about 3 or 4 years now that they were ready to take a step forward, and it just hasn't really happened.
That is 100% it. And look, the White Sox will do something dumb because they're the White Sox, but you're going to have to do an awful lot of not dumb things to make up for being one of the worst teams in baseball, even in that division. I do think that they ultimately take this. All right, let's take a look at the LCS series now, because absolutely nobody could have predicted either of these series, to be honest with you. Maybe the ALCS, a few people might have really liked Texas to advance versus Houston, but not too many, and certainly not a lot of people predicting Philadelphia versus Arizona. Let's start in the American League. Here's my first question for you, Drew. Let's say Max Scherzer can go. Where are you slotting him in the rotation? I'll give you my quick thoughts that I would go and this is just Chris Crawford. If he can go, I would still go with uh, Nathan Eovaldi starting game 1 for me. He's looked fantastic. And then I'm probably still going Jordan Montgomery in game 2, and I'm having Scherzer start at home in game 3, which might line him up for a pivotal game 7 in game 3. How would you do it?
Yeah, it depends on, like, we're kind of guessing on where Scherzer is with that teres major muscle injury in his shoulder. He threw 40 pitches in a simulated game last Friday. He got up to 60 pitches in a simulated game Wednesday. I think you want to make, I don't know, depending on how it lines up, maybe give him one more simulated game and then line him up for game 3.
Mhm.
I think it just really depends on where he is, and he knows his body so well. Yeah, I think the Rangers will definitely put up a strong fight here. They haven't lost yet in the postseason. A 2-game sweep of the Rays in the best of 3 wild card series, then a 3-game sweep of the Orioles in the best of 5 ALDS, and
Yep.
Scherzer and John Gray too could be back. They could both be back from their respective injuries, joining what would be a really good 4-man rotation for a best of 7 series. Like,
Mhm.
Gray is not as far along as Scherzer with the throwing, but he hasn't been out as long as Scherzer, not as serious of an injury. We'll get more clarification on those two when the Rangers set their roster ahead of game 1 on Sunday. But with the way this team is swinging right now and the way they're pitching, and if you get Scherzer and Gray back, that's a better overall starting staff than Houston. Like, this has the feel of a tight series. DraftKings opened with the Astros at -135 to win this ALCS. The Rangers at +105. FanDuel had it as Astros -175 to win the series. I don't think that has stuck. Maybe been bet down a little bit. I hope this series goes long, with the state rival, division rival stuff, offering some additional energy to the whole scene at Minute Maid Park and Globe Life Field. I mean, the Astros are tough and proven on this stage. They went 9-4 against the Rangers during the regular season, but the Rangers definitely have a shot here. Certainly better than, putting the Astros at a -175 odds.
Yeah. I have the current odds right now on DraftKings because I just wrote an article about that. Now go check that out at sportstopia.io. Please and thank you. Astros -140 on DraftKings, Rangers +120. And I'll just go ahead and make my prediction. I'm going to say Rangers in 7. I really am worried about this Rangers bullpen, but I love this lineup. I think they can outscore anybody. And the fact that I do think that Scherzer is going to come back for this series, even if he can only give you 4 or 5 innings or so, just lengthens that rotation so much. And I liked the Dunning and Andrew Heaney piggyback. I think
Yeah.
that they can be effective bullpen options or multi-inning guys. I like this Houston team too. And look, credit to them. 7 straight ALCSs. You cannot downplay that enough. It's really impressive. They're the favorites for a reason in this series. But I think the Rangers got a little bit of magic to them, and I will go with them in 7. Drew, what you got?
I mean, 7 consecutive ALCS like, what in the world? That's
It's
not supposed to
crazy.
happen in this
No,
era. Like,
no.
an era where you see the Dodgers get bounced in 3 games and the Orioles with a very quick stay in the playoffs, the Braves falling in 4. It's been an
Yeah.
incredible run for Houston.
Hmm.
Alex Bregman has played in 90 postseason games already, and he's not even 30 years old. Jose Abreu tore it up in the final 2 games of the ALDS at Minnesota, the oldest player in postseason history to hit 3 homers in a 2-game span. A ton of postseason experience up and down this
Hmm.
Houston roster. Justin Verlander, it works out nice not having to use him in Game 5 of the last round, so
For
that he
sure.
can pitch at full strength in game 1 of this upcoming Final Four round. Yordan Alvarez is a monster. I think the Astros are going to take it, but I think this series goes the distance. I hope it goes the distance because I think it's a little bit more of an exciting matchup than what we have in the NLCS. That's a segue for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, perfect segue. And so in that NLCS, as Drew basically pointed out, the betting odds are heavily in Philadelphia's favor. Philadelphia -70, Diamondbacks +145. Phillies won the series 4 games to 3, which means absolutely nothing. We'll just make our predictions because I want to get into some offseason stuff with you here. I look at this and I was doing in my article, I was looking at like the lineups, the rotation, and the bullpen. And I kept going, Yeah, it's Phillies, but it's pretty close. And rotation, yeah, it's Phillies, but it's actually pretty close there too. And bullpen with Paul Sewald, it's just a lot of really close stuff. And I think you just have to give the edge to the Phillies for having home field advantage, for being here before, and because I can't stop picking against the Diamondbacks now, Drew. I'm going to go Phillies in 6.
Uh, yeah, and I don't know. These are my Diamondbacks, Chris. Like, yeah, swept the Brewers in the first round, swept the Dodgers in the NLDS. It's quite a story so far for a team
Oh,
that
yeah.
was the third NL wild card, the last team to qualify essentially for the NL side of the bracket. It's their first time back in the NLCS since 2007 when they got swept by that Rockies team that went on a tear before losing to the Red Sox in that year's World Series. Corbin Carroll, he's the runaway NL Rookie of the Year. He's batting .412 with a 1389 OPS through his first 23 career postseason plate appearances. Gabriel Moreno, like the young catcher the Diamondbacks got from the Blue Jays last winter, he's breaking out at a terrific time to be breaking out. It's worth pointing out that Dalton Varsho had, he gave you some homers and some stolen bases like he does. He's a good fantasy player, but he had a 674 OPS this season with Toronto and went 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts in the Blue Jays playoff run. Just looking back to that trade that netted
Yeah.
the Diamondbacks Gabriel Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel, who's been a streaky hitter, but certainly still a nice piece. Christian Walker, Ketel Marte, Tommy Pham, all clicking. Andrew Southrank in the bullpen, like. Does the pitching hold up in a best of 7 series against a very hard charging Phillies team? I don't know. It sure fared well against that Dodgers lineup that could be lethal at times during the regular season. But 4
For
games
sure.
potentially at Citizens Bank Park, which seems to offer a real home field advantage. There's a reason that the Diamondbacks are a pretty significant underdog in terms of betting odds in this series. I'm gonna say Phillies in 6.
Phillies
I
in
think it's going
6.
to be
Yeah.
more interesting than people think, but the Phillies are gonna win at home, and they could even just win these first 2 games at home and really put the I don't know how to say it, put the ball in the Diamondbacks court
Right.
down there at Chase Field. Maybe they win 1 game there to force it back to Philly or something. But I believe the Phillies are gonna pull this out.
Yeah, I think so as well. And look, that's no insult to the Diamondbacks. They've had a fantastic season and they certainly can win this series. Like they are playing extremely well. They've been a streaky team all season. We kind of thought they were done for a little bit there. Like they got off to such a great start and then the middle of
Had
the
a horrible
season did not
August, yeah.
a horrible August. And then
I mean, but yeah.
no, go ahead.
Yes, I think like there's also a possibility the Phillies could sweep this. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. It would not shock me at all if they won this series in 4 or 5 games.
because the way it lines up for them, because they closed out the Braves in 4 games in the NLDS,
Mhm.
they can start Zach Wheeler in game 1 of the NLCS again in game 5. Whereas like had the NLDS gone the distance, that would have meant Aaron Nola in game 1 of this coming round with Wheeler not on regular rest until game 3. Like either would have been fine and doable, but they're set up right now in just a lot smoother fashion. And Bryce Harper's
Oh my
postseason
god.
numbers. Have we mentioned his name yet on this show? Like
Nope.
his postseason numbers so far as a member of the Phillies, so this year and last year, a 354 batting average, a 1216 OPS, 9 homers, 7 doubles, 18 RBIs, 19 runs scored in 23 games. Nick Castellanos has been very up and down throughout his career, even in his time in Philly. But if clutch is a skill, he's got that skill. 4 home runs in that 4-game series against the Braves. It's possible the Diamondbacks are just running into a buzzsaw here. I don't know if they're necessarily a buzzsaw themselves.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Real quick, World Series prediction. I will go Phillies over Rangers in 6. Drew, what you got?
Did I pick the Astros or the Rangers is my prediction? I think I picked the Astros.
Yeah,
Um, so I'll say Phillies over Astros in 7, an all-time
nice.
classic World Series.
Yeah, looking forward to it in a rematch of last year's World Series. That'd be a little bit of fun. To close things out, let's kind of put a bow on the season and talk about the offseason because people ask me this all the time. Where is Shohei Ohtani going? Where is Shohei Ohtani going? Where is Shohei Ohtani going? Drew, Where's Shohei Ohtani going?
I mean, I mentioned at the top of the show that the Dodgers sure seem like a good fit if he wants to
Yeah.
stay in Southern California. They have the resources to do it on all fronts if they really want to do it. Um, the Yankees are in panic mode. Could they like make a big spend like that to bring him to New York? Does he want to play in New York? I don't know. I think the Giants have always been a real. They're not much of a dark horse in this, but like a real sneaky great fit for what they are set up to do organizationally. They need a splash of some sort, and they've been trying to make big deals, like big money deals in recent off seasons at recent trade deadlines. They're willing to take on a big contract, and this could be the one. They fired manager Gabe Kapler. They're kind of reshaping things to be less of a boring team, I would say. Like they've been a pretty boring team since that 107 win regular season. Um, I I don't know. Your Mariners are certainly going to be in the running. The Mets with
Yeah.
Steve Cohen's money. I would say those are the teams where I could see it realistically happening. I don't know if there's a real dark horse here. John Heyman of the New York Post has been floating the Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
They have, they fired Heim Bloom, like head of their front office at the end of the winter. They have the money to do it with the Fenway Sports Group. They could market the heck out of it.
Yeah.
If there's one team not in that like main group of six, I could see the Red Sox possibly making a very real play.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will say this too. I won't rule out the Phillies or the Padres because I don't think you can ever rule out the Phillies or the Padres for free agency just based on recent
The
transactions.
way
I don't
their
know
owners
how
do
well.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how well they fit those clubs. Like they'll may have to make some roster moves, except designated hitter. It's easy to move some stuff around, and maybe if you're Phillies, you sign Kyle Schwarber. But I'm going to project the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are going to be in that splash mode, and I think Shohei Ohtani makes sense on any team, but he makes a lot of sense on the Dodgers, and
He does.
the internet will go absolutely insane. Thank you guys so much for listening.
What's the number though? What's the contract?
I'm going to go 480 million over 10.
I bet it's structured very weird, but
Yeah.
I would say approaching, but not quite at 500 is where it winds up.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, the injury, I think, does knock off a couple $100 million, but Shohei Ohtani will be just fine. Thank you so much for listening to the Fantasy Fire and Ice podcast. We really appreciate your support all year. Follow us on all of our social medias, and keep in mind that we have NLB, not just MLB shows. We've got NFL stuff, NBA stuff. We really appreciate your support. Thanks so much. Have a great day.